So from on the water to under the water, now we're going to check out our eelgrass team in action as they work to set out a buoy-deployed seeding system in Moriches Bay as part of their overall eelgrass restoration efforts.
Kim Manzo, Steve Schott, and you know her as our host, Kim Barber, who is also a habitat restoration outreach specialist and works extensively with CCE's Eelgrass program, are out collecting eelgrass flowers for the Barrier Beach Preservation Association to do an eelgrass restoration in Moriches Bay near Moriches Inlet.
We're going to circle around and check out where we want to place the flags, and we'll find a spot to anchor the boat, and that'll be our center point. We'll work from there. It's an ongoing project. We worked with them last fall doing our Marine Meadows program and established a small area, which was our initial patch of eelgrass. And this year we decided, based on our observations from last year, that the site actually might be good for using seeds, eelgrass seeds, for restoration as well, which was a method we've used in the past and actually developed, which is being used all over the country now. This buoy deployed system, and we were looking to test it in this area this year to see if it would actually be beneficial to potentially increase that and go with a larger scale next year to help us with our final restoration goals for that area of Moriches. Funding is primarily being provided by Barrier Beach Preservation Association. So they've actually collected and sponsored the workshops that we've done at the Barrier Beach Preservation Association's clubhouse in West Hampton Dunes, and they've been very supportive. We've had members of the association that have been involved in many parts of this, and we actually, on the day that we actually collected the eelgrass flowers, we had a volunteer from the organization was out helping us. He was able to snorkel and collect some flowers, but he also got to see how the process was done, and it was good to have that kind of support.
So sometimes you could see how it's very different. It's very thin and branchy looking. Yeah. The other thing is these are a lot more fouled with like sponges and stuff right now. So that's one way you might see them from above. You'll see a lot of sponges and other stuff growing all over it.
The primary methods that we use for restoring eelgrass in Long Island has been using adult vegetative shoots. Eelgrass is a clonal grass. It spreads primarily by underground rhizomes, much like a lot of garden plants, and it's a vegetative spread, so it'll branch off and create more plants, and then they branch off. It also is a flowering plant, so it actually produces seeds underwater, and those seeds can be used for restoration purposes. On Long Island, our work has not had as much luck as other places, say the Chesapeake Bay or San Francisco Bay, with using seed, but we've had more success with using the adult shoots. So even though we have developed this buoy deployed seeding system, we haven't had a lot of success using the seed-based methods. So we rely primarily on using these adult vegetative shoots. The Moriches Bay area, specifically near West Hampton Dunes, the bottom in this site where we chose to do restoration seems like it's conducive to taking eelgrass seed and allowing it to germinate and establish. So this planting that we just conducted in the beginning of July is hopefully going to test that, and we'll see by the fall. Usually by October, the seeds will start to germinate as the water drops through about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and into next spring we'll see how successful we've been with the seeds incorporating into the bottom and successfully germinating and starting to mature. So it'll be about a 9-month process from picking the flowers and putting them out in the buoy system to actually seeing if these seeds establish and start to become mature plants. Using eelgrass seeds or collecting flower shoots to collect the seeds is a more involved process than just showing up and picking them. We start off probably a month or two prior to when we think that the plants are going to be ripe. Typically for the South Shore estuary, we've seen flower shoots generally are ripe right around July 4th. So we tend to go down latest middle of June, and we'll collect some flower shoots. We'll bring them back to the lab and gauge how close to maturity they are. And as we get closer to the July 4th date, or if it's going to be sooner or later, we'll look and go more frequently to get an idea of how close we are. We want to collect the flowers There's a 4-week window usually that the eelgrass flowers will release their mature seeds. So we shoot for target goal and window is the 2nd week of seed release. So we have to be sure that we're going to get it there, get down there and pick at that point so that we get the most out of the seeds, or else if we go too late, we'll wind up getting fewer seeds, and if we go too early, what can happen is if we pick the flower shoots and the seeds aren't mature yet, they could abort and we won't get any viable seeds. So it's a very detailed-oriented process where you have to pay attention to the timing based on the stages of development of the seeds. In this method, there's 2 ways that seeds are usually used in eelgrass restoration. Many times and in many organizations throughout the country, they'll collect the flower shoots and bring them back and hold them in tanks and let the seeds drop out into the tanks. Then they'll hold those seeds, collect the seeds and hold them until the fall where they'll broadcast them out just like you would do for your grass seed on your lawn. The method that we developed skips the step of actually having to require a holding period and a facility to hold the seeds. What we do is kind of mimic what nature does. In a natural meadow, the seeds just get dropped out in July or into August in some cases, and they sit in the bottom until they're ready to germinate. So what we're doing is we're mimicking that natural process of seed release, but we're moving the flower shoots to where we want them to drop them out instead of just being in the meadows. So we collect flower shoots from a donor meadow, and we pack them into a net, an aquaculture pearl net, and those nets are hung or attached to a buoy system that's anchored in place, and these buoys are set out in grids. So the test grid that we planted for Mauritius Bay was a 4x4 grid. So there's 16 of these buoy, anchor, and nets with the flower shoots. And that covers a fairly good area. They're about 7.5 to 8 feet on center. And what happens is the anchors hold the buoys and the nets and allow them to swing freely with the changes in wind and tide. And as they swing around and the flowers slowly release the seeds work their way out of the nets and are dropped on the bottom. And depending on prevailing winds and currents, you can get a fairly broad arc of these seeds spread out and cover a fairly good area. And then basically we come back after about 2 to 3 weeks. We'll remove all of those systems, the block, the buoys and everything, so that there's nothing on the bottom to disturb the seedlings. And we just wait for the seeds to germinate in October, and we'll come back next spring and the plants will be big enough, the seedlings will be big enough for us to evaluate their success.
That's that. That is